Okay, so we've gone over all the main principles. We went over the neurology, neuroendocrinology, the web, the nutraceuticals, environmental dietary lifestyle, step-by-step evaluation process, management process. So let's go over some cases. Now, when we go over these cases, you have to understand, I'm trying to show you cases, but there's only so much I can show you of the case. These cases are going to help us illustrate the points and concepts we went over. But this is the reason why we developed the Clinical Mastership Training Program. So for example, Ali is on module 12, and Ollie's case, when you actually listen to the whole history, physical exam, the entire physical exam, the workup and everything, it's about 5 hours. I'm going to try to give you like 30 minutes of it to go over the points. And then Ella is in, I think, module 3 of the Clinical Mastership Training Program. Her case is another 4 to 5 hours, but I'm going to give you the key, try to share with you the principles and concepts, and I can only give you half hour of it. So if you're in the Clinical Mastership Program, then you may see some of these patients. If you're not in it, you have to realize that we really expand upon all these, and one of the clinical skills you have to have is really seeing. You have to get the educational information through modules, but you're almost like, I'm trying to transport you into a clinical practice where you can see all the history and workup and everything and go through it. Now, hopefully at this point you've had a chance to read case 1, Ollie's medical history and documents, and you can see it's pretty substantial. To go over that whole document by itself would take a long, more than the hour I have for the case study section of this course. But the main point is he's got bipolar disorder, and he has these episodes of hypomania and depression. And if you look at the pathophysiology of bipolar disorder, there's some genetic susceptibility, environmental triggers that then cause damage to limbic networks. And then the limbic networks are dysfunctional. Their mitochondria are dysfunctional in these networks. There's brain changes, there's altered signaling, and then they're prone for inflammation. And the typical history of someone who suffers from bipolar disorder in adolescence is when these things usually turn on, and at that point studies have found there's white matter injury hyperintensities that can be identified. And then as they get into adulthood, there's widespread micro structural alterations in the white matter of the limbic system, and then in late adulthood they actually lose gray matter, their neurons, and they actually neurodegenerate. So bipolar disorders, first of all, it's not curable. You're not going to do anything to reverse the genes that have turned on destruction to these limbic pathways, and it's progressive to the point it's going to accelerate someone's neurodegenerative mechanism. So if you can stabilize it, if you can keep it under control, if you can reverse some symptoms, if you can improve, have more good days than bad days, have less flare-ups of the depression and mania, have them be able to have those be less intense, then that's considered successful clinical management. Okay, so the chief complaints, lifelong history of bipolar. Hopefully you've had a chance to read the case study. And then he complains about gastrointestinal issues that include intolerance to vegetables and incomplete bowel movements, fatigue, brain fog, depression, sinus. And you notice he doesn't write down bipolar because he's accepted it. He already knows he is. He's just trying to improve these functions, but he doesn't realize that his bipolar brain activity is impacting his fatigue, it's impacting his brain fog, it's impacting his depression. So I'll let you hear a clip from the medical history that illustrates some of the key points he shares with bipolar disorder. More than likely, like bipolar is just your frontal lobe fatiguing, and you're done.
Yep.
And then your frontal lobe has energy again,
Yep.
and you can focus and concentrate and do things again.
Yeah.
And then boom, it fatigues, or an inflammatory response comes in, something impacts the endurance, and then it doesn't function.
Yeah. Speaking of that, sorry for jumping
No problem.
all over the place, but in one of your podcasts you also talked about exercise and people burning out completely. That's me.
Yeah, that's you.
Like if I do high intensity yoga or something like that,
No.
2 or 3 weeks, I'm done. As in, like I cannot do anything.
Yeah, so that's your
Yeah.
endurance level.
Yeah, or even for
Brain
smaller
endurance.
activities, if you have guests over and I like cooking for people, everything is fine, I'm all good, but the day after, for a day or two, I'm fatigued.
Right. And is that your down part of your bipolar?
No, not necessarily, I'm just tired.
Yeah,
Okay.
the
Yeah.
down is really down. It feels like Ali cannot do anything, doesn't have any motivation. He just wants to quit everything.
Yeah,
But
lights.
when he goes up, he's way above an average person, like a normal person. He's so super like creative, high achiever. He do a lot during that period, and then he goes down. So it's
Okay.
up and down is all over.
So let's
the
talk
place.
about the bipolar patterns. So tell me about your fluctuations of ups and downs, like throughout the month.
As in like how many days I'm up and
Yeah.
like these days, for the past 3 months, it used to be around 50-50.
50-50.
So I used to keep a logbook of days that was good and bad.
I mean, 50-50 throughout the week?
Throughout the
throughout the
year.
month.
Throughout the year in 2021 and 2020.
Okay, let's talk about month first.
It was around 50-50.
Still?
So
And
50-50.
explain that to me now in a week time frame. Could you have a totally good week and then a bad week?
Yeah, I can have a totally
So,
good
so
week.
it could be in episodes of weeks.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And these days, especially for the past 3 months, it's more around 70-80% of down.
70 what?
70-80% of the time I'm down.
Down.
You're down.
So yeah, so I'm down for 3 weeks, and then I'm up for a week, and that week is the time that I need to play catch up. It's these days. I don't know why, and I'm starting to develop some funny symptoms. Like I've never had issue. Like I started having itching in my back for the past month and a half, and I think it was olive oil. I've never had issues with olive oil. Again, I'm saying I think because I need to reintroduce it back again to see if it's developing. But it's gone. But of having another issue of me having a month and a half of my back itching, and I was ignoring that. I was like, I don't even see that. But then I finally realized why you have so many scratches on your back. It's like it's itching. Maybe it's the bed. Maybe it's the.
Okay, well, 80% of the time down is really bad.
Right now it's like
At
that.
this-
How long has it been this way?
3 months.
The past 3 months?
Yeah, it's past 3 months.
That's
I
the
had-
worst it's been?
It's the worst. No, the worst it's been was that time when I
When
was
you were 20.
24. That was
So-
4 months. I locked myself in a room for 4 months.
Okay.
Yeah, that
So-
was the worst
so
time.
that was the worst, but in the past 20 years since, this is the worst it's been?
This.
I think-
No, I've had worse.
No, I think
During AIP.
Before AIP.
Before AIP,
Before
yeah.
starting AIP, the previous a year before that, like Ali could hardly do the work. Coming back to home, he just had to lay down, and that was in and out. And for the weekend, he had to sleep to recover. So I think it was one of the low points, really
Okay.
low points.
No, it's not the worst right now.
It's
Okay,
not
so
worse.
explain to me what happens when you're down. No motivation, no drive.
No motivation, no drive.
What else?
I will be sensitive to light. I will be sensitive to
Sound.
sound and noise.
Okay.
No drive for work, for life, activities that he likes, even just playing video games.
Yeah.
No
or
pleasure.
studying.
Nothing brings you pleasure.
Nothing. And that's actually everything brings me pain, because when I'm up, I buy books, I buy electronic stuff.
Yeah,
to,
but let's stick it down for a second.
yeah.
Do you have irritability? Do you have anger?
Um,
No.
no,
No.
I'm very neutral. I think like don't care.
Just don't care.
Yeah, just don't care. I don't. No, I'm not angry. I'm not even agitated. It's actually the other way around.
Okay.
When I'm feeling good, that's the time that I'm agitated. Why this is like that? It should be like
That's
this.
OCD's there.
Yeah.
Ready to go.
And she knows that when I'm doing that, it's a good week.
When I see
Okay.
OCD pattern and he say why this mug is here, I
Yeah.
get happy because I know
Because
he's
brain
feeling
function.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
And she gives me project. Do this, do that. It's the time to.
Time to do it.
Yeah, time
you
to
get
do
a
it.
lot of good things done.
But no, the other times I really just don't care.
Yeah, I think it's no
Okay.
motivation.
So we have to like look at some things to monitor with you, okay?
Yeah.
To see if you're getting better. Like your bloating and GI symptoms, it's gonna be pretty easy.
Yeah.
Stop feeding small bacterial growth,
Yeah.
it's gone.
Mhm.
Okay, and when you do feed it, you're going to more likely get into a down state because you're going to cause neuroinflammation, brain inflammation, promote your autoimmunity, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So we'll figure that out later.
Yep.
But we want to look at your good versus bad day.
And one data point for the good days is his energy or mental power is like his superhero. It's not normal at all. Like he can finish something that a normal person can do in 3 days in 1 hour. Very precise, very clean. So he do a lot of things, and I think that's why he's successful at work or other areas, because he can catch up. But it's a pain because if he has that capability, he wants to continue that, but then he goes down.
Right.
So it's a
So
strange,
many,
like
so many
observing it is a
unfulfilled
strange.
potential. That's what
okay.
I look at it.
So when you have the good days, you have your OCD come out.
Yeah. And those are my good days, yeah.
Then that's in and the anger, irritability, everything is in
Yeah,
there.
and I always tell Ozzy, maybe I had a thyroid destruction and I have a lot of hormones in my bloodstream during my good days, and that's why it's happening. And I know when I have a good day, some stage I'm gonna go back down.
Okay, so usually last week.
A week, maybe two. I've had three weeks of good days.
In
I have
best case.
yeah.
Yeah, in best case, 3 weeks of good, but it can be the other way, 3 weeks of bad and then 1 week of good.
Do you notice any things that patterns you get to that start to push you into bad days?
I start getting tired.
Fatigue?
Yeah, I start getting fatigued and I have to sit down and I don't want to go out and I know that it's happening. Like I started,
And when we say fatigue, there's different types of fatigue. Fatigue could be like muscle fatigue, tiredness, where the brain is still okay, and then there's like brain-based fatigue where you just don't want to think about focus, everything's fatiguing, you're cognitive,
no, brain is still good, feel low energy.
low energy.
Yeah, low energy, yeah. I think brain is still good. Brain is the next one that goes.
So your physical endurance goes first.
Yeah, my physical. So I need to sit down and then sitting down, laying down, it actually starts degenerating the brain function and then I'm gone. When I lose that, I'm gone.
Okay. Do you have any dizziness during these periods?
Not really.
Okay.
Apart from sitting down and standing up.
Any-
And that doesn't happen all the
Do you have
time.
any trips, falls, coordination issues when this is happening? Are you more prone to those things?
No, not necessarily during those days. I do injure myself more often than other people. I think when I reach out to fasten a screw or do something, I might hit my hand to an area and just I realize, hey, I have a cut here, I have a cut there. Or when I'm walking around the bed, I might like hit my leg to one side of the bed, and I don't know why. I think like I have those things, but they're not during any specific time
No,
of
it's
bad
just-
or good.
Understand.
Yeah.
One data point for you is I can predict when it is coming because his eye changes the way it looks. It looks a little bit darker here, or it feels a little bit sad, and some changes on his lips. It just looks different, and I kind of can predict this is coming.
Can you send me a picture next time?
I can. I actually have one.
Yeah, I have it already here.
Yeah, I just.
Yeah, I have it already here.
His lips definitely keep changing. It feels like someone that is in pain. He doesn't notice at all, but
I don't
a
notice
day
any of
or
those.
2 days after this starts.
Favorites. I have 57 minutes.
Let's see if there's any
She tells me
changes in
this is
pictures.
this
Oh,
is
I
an
see.
example,
Yeah.
but I don't see any difference.
Yeah.
You look tired.
Yeah. The same thing when I do a lot of physical activity, there is a good chance that I'm gonna collapse and go to that direction. Like it starts with
You do a lot of
physical.
physical activity?
Yeah, it starts with tiredness, like body being tired, and then
Body being, okay. So when you,
Sorry
have
if it's not that
when you get
helpful.
sensitivity to light and sound,
yeah, it's getting better these days. Sorry,
and
this
nothing,
is
yeah.
this is the other one. I think I don't know. It's 2020 or 2021. Check marks are good days. Crosses are bad days.
So that's more than 50-50. That's worse.
Yeah.
It's like 60-40.
Yeah, and
These
those
days is worse than that.
Yeah.
Like these days for the past 3 months, it's like 80-20.
Okay.
past 3 months. Yeah.
Let's get you out of this.
Yes.
Listen, this is going to happen to you for sure when your frontal lobe fatigues.
Yeah.
You gotta look at this as a frontal lobe fatigue issue.
Mhm.
Okay, so a couple things to really clarify here. So when he says good days and bad days, his bad days, he's in a depressive state. And here's the thing, when you see him in this video and he's functioning, he seems like a totally normal person. We don't realize like 3 weeks out of the month, he can't function, he's in bed. and he has no function. And I remember talking to him. He was like, the most scary thing was I thought I was going to fly all the way out here to your office and have a bad day, and then I was going to have to just sit here and then have my wife explain my whole history to you. He goes, I woke up this morning, day of the exam, I woke up this morning and go, oh my God, that's a good day. And like celebration, and they're happy he was able to function. So that's the thing with these bipolar patterns. When they're functioning and you see them when they're not in their state, when their brain's not inflamed, because remember inflammation triggers this, they seem totally fine. And then they get into these states. Now his is really bad because 75 to 80% of the time he's in this full depressive state. Now sometimes when he's in his normal state, he has some hypomania, but it's not the entire time. It's just the way things are. But he's basically been able to survive because he's been able to work as a consultant. We has projects due like at the end of each month and of so many weeks. So he knows he just got to wait for that brain recovery phase to recover. So when you see a situation like this, like it would be clinically unrealistic to say we're going to cure you from bipolar disorder, because there's actual structural change in the brain that's taking place with them. But the clinical goal is definitely to say, hey, maybe we, instead of being down 3 weeks, maybe we can change that. Maybe we can give you some more days where they're good. That could be something that's realistic to start with. Now let's hear some more of his history. Is there any, if you were inconsistent with your diet more than you are now, you were bloated all the time, would you have more bad days?
Yeah,
For sure.
For some reason, like if I have, again, I give you an example of garlic because then that I know how it looks like. If I have garlic, so I'm gonna have bloating, I'm gonna have bad dreams.
Yeah.
After I wake up, the first thing I have is I have depressive symptoms.
Okay.
I'm depressed, like.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because of the bad dreams I've had or.
No, but if you get lots of bloating and distension and your gut functions off, your brain function goes down, and then you get these episodes pretty quickly.
Yeah, the first thing I feel is brain fog.
Yep.
Then after that, if not immediately, in a couple of days, I'm gonna be down.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if we put you on starches and sugars and fruits, you'd be a mess.
Depends
on the
which one.
fruit.
Like even with FODMAP, I'm a little bit finicky.
But on
Some
the
of
ones
them
you can.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like we could predict it.
Yeah, but
We can make a diet for him to totally fall apart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can.
Yeah.
I think we can.
Yeah,
I think we can. Like with garlic and stuff. But when I'm down, I actually feel like I want to have like rice and chickpeas. That's
True.
what makes me happier.
True.
I cannot
Does it
have
make you
meat.
bloated or not?
A little bit, but it's not that bad.
Okay.
Rice, not rice, but chickpeas can get me a little bit bloated. But I end up recovering faster with rice and chickpeas. It's like she knows if I'm going for, I have like a maybe frozen chickpeas and I combine it with rice, and that's where it helps me to get out of that state, and I cannot have meat, for
Have you
example.
ever tried taking things like 5-HTP or St. John's wort or
5-HTP I've tried.
while you're in your down phase to get out of your
I
down
have
phase?
no recollection of.
Never trying that.
Never tried.
Okay.
I think I did. I think it actually helped. Sometimes it helped.
Yeah.
It was helping. Yeah.
If you have a lot of symptoms on
Do you
your
know which one was it? The one that I had. You were keeping them for my down days.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, what was it?
The 5-HTP.
It was
Why?
yeah, because you have all these symptoms of very low serotonin. So when your serotonin levels go down,
Yeah.
nothing brings you joy, like nothing makes you happy. Like, you have different types of people in down periods. Your dopamine levels are definitely down.
Mhm.
Your serotonin levels are definitely down, right? So
The other remedy you have for me is turmeric.
Turmeric and
The other
glutathione.
Apex, gluten flam, and the other Apex, the
Anti-inflammatories.
O2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So inflammation promotes it,
Yep.
and
Yep.
and then things that can
Yeah.
impact your serotonin levels can help you come out of it.
And the motivation is so low that he doesn't even want to try the supplements. So
Yeah.
if I'm
Gotta force it.
successful, then he recovers quicker. Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. When you are down, if you do physical movement, have you ever tried any kind of physical movement? I know you don't want to do it.
It does help.
Does it help you get out of it?
It does help,
Okay, so
but not every type of physical movement. If I go for a 20-30 minutes walk outside, that's not going to be helpful. But if I go for a
2 hours.
3 hours, 4 hours of hiking, I'm going to be in pain for the first 45 minutes. After that, I'm fine. When I get back home, I'm all good.
So the best times for Ali that he was in a better shape was when every week we were doing long walks, like 1 hour, 2 hours. So if he continue doing that, there is less chance he go down. But if, for example, if we do like short walks around the home, there is a chance that he comes back home and he crashes.
Okay. You know how to treat yourself for most things already. You're just not doing it.
Yeah, just when I'm down, it's very difficult to find it.
understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I know like type of food. I'm sure I haven't have all of them figured out, but I know what I can eat. And also, if I push myself to do some sort of physical activity every week, that helps me as well. But when it happens it's out of nowhere. Yeah, it hits me like a truck.
Listen, we have to
when it
figure out two
happens.
strategies working together. One strategy is to optimize you so you don't have a down period.
Mhm.
The second strategy is how to get you out of a down period faster.
Mhm.
You know, and the net effect of all those is you have more good days than bad days.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's the key thing is when you, especially with bipolar disorder, if you really go through, you know, one of the most important questions to ask is what helps you and makes you crash. If you can identify those sources, then you're already starting to develop a treatment protocol. Now, the physical exam, there wasn't really anything there isn't anything really significant to show you, which a lot of times with cognitive disorders, there's not really anything wrong with the exam. It really depends if there's pathways that are really dysfunctioning. Now, I'm sure if we saw him in a depressive state, just like you saw his picture of his face, he had facial paresis, I'm sure we're going to see like slowness of movement, abnormal gait, bad balance. We're going to see all types of things in his depressive states because he's going to get into an acute inflammatory reaction, right? His depressive states is triggered by inflammation. That's the key underlying pathophysiology of bipolar disorders. They have dysfunctional limbic circuits and inflammation drives it. So he's having his inflammatory responses last for 3 weeks, you know, and then he's starting to recover that last week and function a little bit there. And then sometimes he gets into a little bit of mania, but you know, we get to see him in a state where he was actually functioning okay and didn't have depression or mania. So these are the impressions I have when I worked up through the case. And part of it has to do with not what he said in the history, but also if you get a chance to read his medical report. So Ali appears to have a history of epilepsy in childhood with the development and progression into bipolar disorder in adulthood. There is growing evidence that bipolar and epilepsy are comorbid conditions and share underlying pathophysiology mechanisms leading to abnormal neurochemical discharges. These patterns are genetic origin that have not been found to be curable with any forms of current treatments. So right off the bat, I just want to establish, and this is a report that I share with the patient, like, there's no cure for this. No one's ever found a cure for bipolar, you know? And we're not going to be the person who finds it and gets the Nobel Prize in medicine. We're going to try to make you function the best you can with what you have and with strategies we know. There are clear patterns of childhood developmental delay associated with attention deficit, obsessive compulsive disorders that have progressed into adulthood in combination with significant episodes of bipolar depression, obsessive compulsivity activity. These abnormal patterns of neurochemical discharge activity may play a role in the disruption of the brain-gut axis, because the chief complaint is GI symptoms. Furthermore, there are indications that the onset of autoimmunity occurred at age 30 when brain-gut axis patterns were starting to develop. So he also has Hashimoto's, by the way. These include a combination of identified autoantibodies that include arthritic protein antibodies, myelin-basic protein antibodies, and thyroid antibodies. There's also the autoimmune expression of alopecia areata. Myelin-basic protein antibodies may be component disruption of the brain-gut axis. There are clear indications of dysfunctional enteric nervous system functions and quite possibly combination of impaired enteric nervous system neurodevelopment in combination with injury to the enteric plexus from autoimmunity. These patterns may play a significant role in chronic patterns of small intestine bacterial overgrowth and intolerance to dietary carbohydrates and sugars. Laboratory tests indicate no significant sensitivities to diet proteins or loss of oral tolerance. Although thyroid antibodies have been elevated in repeated measures, there are no patterns of hypothyroidism yet. So if you read his history and timeline, age 30 is when things really got much worse. And, you know, he's already had these bipolar early patterns, just like the chart I showed you, that takes place with many people with bipolar disorder, starting with epilepsy and then OCD and attention deficit disorder. And he has antibodies to arthritic protein antibodies. He doesn't have any joint swelling or joint pain yet. So that's like in stage 1 silent autoimmunity. He has myelin basic protein autoantibodies, which means his brain has autoimmunity. And that's another component of bipolar disorders. And he has the thyroid autoantibodies, but he doesn't have enough thyroid destruction where he's hypothyroid yet. You have to pay very close attention to that, because if his immune system has enough destruction of the thyroid and he gets in a hypothyroid state, everything is going to get much, much worse. So if his bipolar phases get much, much worse, that lasts longer, we always have to get that TSH measured, because there's a possibility when there is some progression of his autoimmune thyroid tissue gland destruction from the autoimmune response over time, that he may need to be on some kind of replacement. Now, a laboratory test. So I wanted to just run some routine laboratory tests, just like the panel I showed you, just a routine blood test, H. pylori Stollangin test, just some history indications of that. And then I wanted to give him, he wanted to look at his TSH and reverse T3 while in stasis depression, see if something turned on there. There's a possibility that an inflammatory response can impact his T4 to T3 conversion, or he may have his thyroid function totally change in those depressive states. No imaging studies recommended at this time, and then we want to follow the guidelines of the FODMAP diet. And there's some concern that the demyelination, inflammatory responses, and neurodevelopment patterns are not just impacting his brain, but his gut as well. So the treatment plan I put for him is, number 1, determine if adding a meal before bedtime increases his ability to sleep through the night while following the strict restriction of the FODMAP diet. So what's a key essential? I got to get him to sleep, right? So we got to have the bloating and distension under control, because that's impacting his sleep. All right, and his blood sugar levels are also a big key factor, so he's not able to sleep through the night. So I think he's getting some nocturnal hypoglycemia, but I got to make sure he eats something that doesn't cause him to get bloated and distended and also wake up. Add exogenous ketones before bedtime to help with the ability to sleep through the night. Add digestive enzymes each meal, hydrochloric acid, pancreatic enzymes, lipases. Use liposomal glutathione before workouts, and then following activities daily routine to maintain brain neurochemical activity throughout the day, especially emphasis on reading in the morning, yoga at 4, and project planning in the evening time. Now, how did I come up with that? I go, at your best, what was your schedule? And he goes, at my best, this is what I did. I go, perfect, you already know how to do that, and that's already worked for you. Let's have you follow those guidelines. And then the next thing was to develop a clinical strategy to recover from periods of bipolar depression that include improving frontal lobe neurochemical activity and dopamine, serotonin, epinephrine, norepinephrine. That's all information I picked up from the brain region localization form and the brain health nutrition assessment form. If you look at his forms, you can see there's lots of symptoms there. In addition to physical activity, to optimize neurochemical activation of the frontal lobe. So nutraceuticals include dopatone, serotonin, kinecostem. And dopatone contains the main substances that increase dopamine. Serotonin is a compound that has the compounds that raise serotonin levels. Kinecostem has the compounds we listed in the charts that can be used to activate epinephrine, norepinephrine. Physical and cognitive activities include walking, hiking, driving, and then rocking back and forth in a chair, just to get some vestibular input. Weekly emails are requested. Any patterns of bloating, consistently following daily routine. Consistently following daily routine is circadian rhythm. Good days versus bad days throughout the week. So you can see what I'm doing here. I got to get him to sleep. I got to get him to move. Right, those are essential issues. I got to get his blood sugar stable. So you can see the protocols, those 3 pillars right away. And then I have to start adding in some ways to get him out of his low phases when he crashes. So I'm trying to increase his neurochemical activity to make those things happen, right? So is literally the downstream effect that I'm trying to make with him based on how he responds. And then phase 2 is really there to go into and work on his autoimmunity. We haven't gotten into phase 2. Phase 3 is to see what's left and really try to improve his brain function, his mitochondrial function, his blood flow, keep monitoring his TSH, but we're just in stage 1. So I do a follow-up with him 3 months later. I have some questionnaire forms. And then I ask, since your last appointment, which parts of your treatment protocol have you followed? He says it's consistently in supplements 80% of the time, daily activity tracker, added back hiking and glutathione for better recovery, reduced my depression days and increased my good days as 50%, which is great. So now he's, instead of like just not functioning 3 weeks out of the month, he's He's not functioning 2 weeks, and he has 2 weeks to have. We just added a week. This protocol that he went into added a week to his life, to his function, which is fantastic. 900% FODMAP, however, my bloating reduced over the past 3 months. And then, do you have any new or persistent symptoms? No. What are your current concerns? Working off frontal lobe, lack of motivation, sense of depression. And then, what do you want to accomplish this appointment? In the structure of frontal lobe. So here's the follow-up on Zoom. Not the whole thing. The whole thing was an hour, but just clips. All right. I got your follow-up information. So how are you doing? Are you in a
Yeah, pretty good.
state are you in? Are you good?
I'm good. Yeah, pretty good. Everything is good. Thanks for asking.
All right. So I got the forms. What's important to do is to kind of review the emails that you sent me. And you get a little tracker, and then I have your lab. And then
Yep.
you have a few questions. So let me pull up the document. So that'll help us go through everything. Overall, though, it seems like you're having some improvements. You're not all the way there, but you're having some improvements, correct?
Yeah. I think I'm 50-50 now, which is great from 2080.
Yeah, I mean, one of the first goals was to have more good days and bad days as an essential.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
when you say 50-50, what does that mean?
As in, it's so funny. I'm on a sine wave schedule. I'm like 2 weeks of being good, and then 2 weeks of not being good. At least the past couple of months, it's predictable, and it's like I can predict that in next couple of days I'm gonna be good. I'm gonna be back to normal.
Well, that's really important. And before, just remind me, it was like 3 weeks, or what was it, 4 weeks?
Yeah, around 3 weeks, 1 week.
So we talked about this. You said you're 50% still in progress. 900% on FODMAP diet, but bloat overall is improved. That's fine. You don't have, as long as your bloating is reduced, you can follow whatever degree of restrictions you need for the FODMAP diet. I don't really think you have full-blown small intestinal bacterial overgrowth as a primary issue. I think it's your brain-gut axis disruption and whatever it takes for you to have your bloating resolved. Okay. Do you have any new? Perfect. No symptoms that are new. Working on frontal lobe related lack of motivation, signs of depression, and then what do you hope to accomplish? Instructions for your frontal lobe. So when you look at your frontal lobe, let me show you something. So one of the most important things with your frontal lobe is there's a rule in neurology rehabilitation. Whatever you can't do is what you want to do. Okay. Mm-hmm. So, so like if someone was out of shape, if they couldn't do a squat, the only way they're going to get better is by doing squats, right? If someone can't do a push-up, the only way they're going to get better is doing push-ups, right? Mm-hmm. Even though it's hard and it's no fun, and they're not good at it. So when you look at frontal lobe and you look at the ones you really have symptoms, issues with, for example, difficulty initiating and finishing tasks. You pushing yourself to initiate and finish tasks, as any task, simple as it may be, is going to stimulate your frontal lobe. Mm-hmm. Okay, so a lot of your frontal lobe training is going to be really cognitive. Okay, so now maybe the task may be too difficult for you at times, so you have to make tasks that are doable. The task that's doable may be like you can't go for a drive, but as hard as it may be, you can get up and walk around your room for a second, then come back down. So as you do that, let's say you were in a depressed state and you just didn't want to do anything, right? Okay, bump up your ketones even during the day, like exogenous ketones, and especially at nighttime. Take some glutathione, take the neurotransmitter stuff, increase that. But then, even if you're not able to initiate, try to find something you can initiate. Okay, so maybe it's hard for you to go for a drive or go for a hike or do something like that, but maybe you can get out of bed and just walk around in the room for 3 times.
Yep.
The fact of you walking up in the room and walking 3 times actually turns on your neurochemistry. It actually has a physiological effect of the pathways that are not working. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And then maybe you then okay, that sucked, that was difficult, but I did it. Right? As simple as that task may be, just getting up and walking around your room or something like that. Okay. This is an example. Then, you might notice a few minutes later, you could maybe walk outside. Yeah. And that's your next goal. But the way you're activating and rehabilitating your frontal lobe is you're just pushing yourself by these task-driven related issues. Okay, so that's just, you can see within a short period of time, we see some change, and he's starting to really start to go deeper, wants to do other things. So this is great news. Bipolar disorder, if you guys work with them, they're really, really difficult cases. So to get someone to have a 50% function throughout the month versus 80% loss, 75 to 80% loss, it's a really big deal. Now, this is just 3 months. You have to understand, we have a lot of things to do, and if you look at the treatment protocol, we have different phases. We're still in phase 1. We may be in phase 1 for the next 6 to 9 months. Then we may shift into phase 2 and then eventually to phase 3. There's kind of some overlap between each of these things. The reason I write these phases out for my patient treatment plan so they know the process and then that we're working through it. So once we get more consistency, we're good. So now our goal is 3 good weeks, 1 bad week. And then eventually we just want to have them have 1 month, 2 months, and see what we can get. So we're just going there without being cocky. We're going there just as humble as can be. We're starting with 3 pillars. We want him to have his blood sugar stable. We want him to have him sleep. We want him to follow a circadian rhythm. We want him to start engaging activations and motivating himself to do things. That seems to be a big part of where his neurochemical limbic pathways are involved. His ventral ascending dopaminergic system and his prefrontal to activate motion and movement and initiation are the things that we're trying to improve plasticity, connectivity. Every time he tries to activate those centers by pushing himself, he's actually building mitochondria, neuroconnectivity in those areas. So time will tell. But let's go on to the next case. So the next case is Ella. Ella has generalized anxiety disorder. Here's a video that goes into her history. Whoops, not this one. Actually, let's start with Ella first. With Ella, here's her chief complaints. Then we'll get into the video first. So she has stomach and digestion problems, anxiety, panic attacks, thyroid health swings back and forth between hyper and hypo. She has Hashimoto's, body inflammation, which results in eyes, allergies, muscle issues, mold exposure, cold hands, feet, chilly, bad anxiety. These are not what I wrote down. This is her chief complaints that she listed. So obviously we find out that her stomach and digestion issues could really just be due to his anxiety and panic attacks. She has relentless anxiety and panic attacks daily. And she gets into sympathetic mode daily, and that's going to definitely shut down the gut. It's going to dampen parasympathetic activity. And he has this uncontrollable hypo issues and body swelling. So we know that she's got anxiety, so we know that her amygdala is activated, right? Or it's not being dampened. That's the pathophysiology of it. Now, when you review her past medical records, you see someone ran a lab test, and look at this. She has Hashimoto's, but she also has cerebellar antibodies. And this is really important for us because right away we go, hey, there's a pathway that triggers the amygdala. And if the vestibular cerebellar system is injured, then what happens is there's increased input to the midbrain sympathetic centers, and a person has sensations like they're falling all the time, and they have sensations like they're falling all the time. Their sympathetic system is going to go nuts, and it's going to drive their epinephrine, norepinephrine levels, which is going to keep activating and sensitizing that amygdala. Also, every time she falls, has a sensation like she's falling, there's going to be direct inputs to the amygdala to activate fear and arousal responses to try to find a way to protect her from falling. And some of these may be subconscious. The other things we see in her medical history lab work from other people that she's worked with is she definitely has significant reactions to milk proteins, cross-reactive grains. She has the genotype for gluten sensitivity. So she has the HLA-DQ gene type for that. So right away, just the fact that we know she has Hashimoto's, her thyroid antibodies can impact and injure her cerebellum. We now see more likely gluten, dairy cross-reactivity impacting her cerebellum. And before we even do a history and get worked up with her, like if you know these pathways, you're like, I think I know what's causing the anxiety. So let's take a look.
I'm 17, and I think I come in mostly for thyroid issues as well as gut issues, as well as a lot of fatigue, a lot of anxiety, really bad anxiety symptoms. I feel like just taking a lot of vitamins and supplements. I'm completely gluten-free. I've tried to go completely grain-free before. That helped for a little while. Then I slowly started adding it back in. And then I was dairy free as well. What else have I done? We've done a little bit of therapy for like anxiety, but like it's more than like something you can like just talk about. It's like mental. Just being able to go out and about and not feel a lot of anxiety. Like, cause I'll get anxiety about little things that they're not rational, as well as like not falling asleep in class and like having really bad fatigue and just like having really bad mood swings and having really bad stomach issues and like really tight chest and like not being able to breathe and like panic attacks. And I guess over the next couple of months, I was thinking.
Yeah, you can see a 17-year-old that has anxiety every single day and has uncontrollable autoimmunity. It's not a good place to be, because this is the point of your life where you gotta like get ready for school, get ready for college, figure out what you want to do with your career, and it's really impacting her quality of life. Now she's really positive, has great, has a great attitude, but she's definitely suffering. Now, if you haven't noticed, she's got dilated pupils. She's sitting in a normal light room, her eyes are dilated. So right now we can see her epinephrine, norepinephrine is really high. Now I'm going to show you a lot of significant things we found in the physical exam. So let me have you go through those.
I'm 17.
You can see a pretty clear left-sided tremor. And there's different types of tremors, but this is a clear physiological tremor. So a physiological tremor is a tremor that occurs with rest and occurs with movement. And there isn't a lot of range of motion with it. It's very small oscillations and very fast small oscillations. And that is typically associated with having a lot of catecholamines in the bloodstream, like lots of adrenal medulla hormones from an autonomic sympathetic response. It could also happen from thyroid hormones being released in the bloodstream from like a thyroiditis, or she could have had a reoccurring Hashimoto's flare-up recently. And increased thyroid hormones make receptor sites for epinephrine and norepinephrine more sensitive. So it's the kind of tremor you would get if you had 20 cups of coffee or something. It's a physiological tremor. So with auscultation of the neck and heart, it was really clear that her heart rate is just bouncing all over the place. So she's borderline tachycardic. Heart rate was definitely in the 90 or higher. And this is just at rest. So she's definitely having her sympathetic system activated like crazy. And there were no abnormal heart sounds or any serious red flags. And her carotid arteries were okay. And also, if there's a lot of hyperthyroid activity, you can sometimes even hear swishing and blood flow up in the upper neck area. So with the pulse ox, you can actually see the heart rate variability just really, really high. And that's what I was hearing when I was auscultating her heart. So you can see that the resting heart rate got above 100, and then her SpO2 level dropped to 95. Then I asked her if she feels any anxiety. She says no. So these levels of sympathetic driven epinephrine, norepinephrine are for sure circulating throughout her body. Now, she gets panic attacks. So if you think about it, if your resting state has catecholamines extremely high, as if you just ran intensely and did a sprint, and these levels are circulating, then whatever that next trigger is, emotional trigger, it might give you a little bit of stress, maybe significantly amplified, which may be contributing to her panic attacks that she reports about with some of the events like, getting on a bus to go to a sports activity or something at school. But anyways, you can clearly see that at rest, she has a heart rate that is totally abnormal. So I should have had her take her necklace off during the thyroid exam. Sometimes you're just in it and you forget what's happening. We always tell patients before the exam take off their jewelry, but I may have missed that. In any case, her thyroid gland is swollen. And actually, if you take a look at the video of her just sitting there with some of the exam features, you'll see that there's a little bit of swelling over the thyroid gland. There's no nodules or masses, but just kind of like a mushy, swollen feeling that you can palpate with her. So that lets us know that there's some degree of ongoing thyroid inflammation and swelling, and that could be part of the reason why her catecholamines could be increased because thyroid hormones increase metabolic rate, and they can activate sympathetic response pathways. They can also sensitize catecholamines. And once you feel the thyroid gland is swollen like that, you really want to be very careful not to go in there and start digging and palpating, because you can create a thyroid storm. But there's definitely some degree of swelling there. Okay, so we're going to check your pupil response. Oh, don't worry. Just relax your eyes. So the eyes should dilate in dark. First of all, you see that dilating? They're pulsating. There we go, now they're dilating. See that pulsation? Mm-hmm. That's dysautonomia. The only thing you should be doing in dark is being dilated. This massive dilation constriction pulses means your sympathetic and parasympathetic are just fighting each other. So normally that would happen only when you're like shining a light in the eye or changing the brightness of the room.
Okay.
So we haven't changed the brightness of the room or shining a light.
No.
But those pupils are responding, constricting and dilating as if we were. So that's the dilation is sympathetic, constriction is parasympathetic. When the system starts to have its own fire rates on its own, that's called dysautonomia. That can also change temperature.
Okay.
So we get those temperature regulation issues because sympathetic pathways activate that. Okay, now let's turn the lights on. And they constrict. They're supposed to stay constricted, but then the eyes dilate. Let's turn them off again. They should dilate, but they constrict and start pulsating. And then we turn the lights on. They should constrict. They do. They respond, but then they go to being dilated. So these dilated pupils with patterns of constriction dilation. So this is what we see with what's called dysautonomia. Okay, pupil responses are a really good clinical window of looking at autonomic function. So remember, when the sympathetic system activates, the pupils dilate, and when the parasympathetic system activates, the pupils constrict. So when you're under stress and something's trying to kill you or attack you, your eyes dilate, and when you go in darkness, your eyes dilate. Now with her, we're seeing all types of abnormal pupillary constriction, pupillary dilation responses. And these are just things that occur with dysautonomia. Now, you should also remember that when we first checked her direct and indirect light, we didn't see these types of abnormalities. Go ahead and shake your head in 10 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And eyes open, head straight. See that light bouncing. Just keep her. Do you feel like you're moving?
No.
Okay, with the head shake test, what you do is you have a patient just shake their head for 10 seconds. That activates the left and right vestibular system equally, and then you have them stop. And a normal test would be that there's no movements of the eyes, there's no nystagmus. Now with her, she does develop nystagmus. So if you look, since she opens her eye, there is like 2 to 3 beats of nystagmus to the right, and then 2 to 3 left beats. The beats are referred to the fast phase. So the fast phase goes to the right for 2 to 3 beats, and then it goes to the left for 2 to 3 beats. And this is another indication that it's not just one-sided cerebellar issue, that it's really the entire cerebellum that's involved. And this is something that has to be corrected. Now, she doesn't notice any dizziness during this, but it wouldn't be unexpected for her to notice some of her anxiety issues are aggravated when there's lots of motion or movement in her environment with a pattern like this. Come down. Lisa.
Yeah.
Go ahead and put your feet together. One foot in front of the other. And then close your eyes.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Okay. You okay? Come on up. Feet together. Okay. Let's see how long it takes for this to go down. Just breathe normal. Just breathe normal.
Oh.
So how fast it goes down lets us know
Yeah,
how much adrenaline is sticking around for.
Wow.
It's still there. Let's give it a minute.
So temporarily, could you take something to help with the cortisol, or
It's not cortisol.
or
So
do-
this is adrenaline.
so there's nothing we can do temporarily, like
Are you still having this spinning? Are you still feeling dizziness? If you close your eyes right now, do you feel like you're moving?
Not right now, no.
Okay, shake your head. Like 10 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Do you feel anything?
Yeah.
You feel like you're moving?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. Does it cause you any anxiety?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Can you turn the lights on and off like 5 times in a row? Tell me if it's causing anxiety for you.
Yeah,
It does?
a little bit, yeah.
No? Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so this is a case where you can actually see neurological pathways that are dysfunctional leading to anxiety. And this is, in a sense, good news because you know what the cause is. And in a sense, it's bad news because it's a pretty complex condition. It's autoimmunity really at her age starting to destroy part of her brain, her cerebellum. And, the interesting thing also is very simply just putting on a heart rate monitor, having someone shake their head or stand feet together shouldn't cause someone's heart rate to go up to 104. So that's epinephrine, norepinephrine. And you notice we cut down the video because once the heart rate was up, we're like, okay, let's see how long this lasts before these levels go down. Will give us a clue how much circulating catecholamine she has. It took, I don't know, 5 minutes longer for that heart rate to come down just by that vestibular challenge by putting her feet together. So this is happening to her all day, every single day, and she has anxiety, and she doesn't know what to do. And the mom has the best intentions, loves her daughter, thinks this is, let's try the adrenal thing and try adaptogens and cortisol things, but those things are not going to work when all it takes is a movement or emotion to cause those patterns. Now, let me show you the impression, the report I wrote as my conclusion when I was finished up with the case here. I put, Ella has laboratory confirmed pattern associated with Hashimoto's and cerebellum autoimmunity. She was diagnosed with hypothyroidism at age 11 and gluten sensitivity at age 14. She's been following the guidelines of a gluten-free diet, but she has not avoided dairy products. Her patterns of anxiety appear to be induced by vestibular and cerebellum dysfunction. Ella reports that she has symptoms of geocentric vertigo several times a week. She also reports sensations of floating several times a week. When she shakes her head back and forth or closes her eyes at times, she notices a sensation of movement that varies in all directions at various times. In addition to patterns of cerebellum impairment, Ella has a history of a concussion that occurred in 2016. The examination, which I didn't get the chance to show you because of time, identified symptoms associated with right somatosensory cortex injury, affecting positional sensation and pinprick sensation on the left side of the body. She reports that she has had a hip injury and then left injury and a knee injury on the left side in the past 2 years. These injuries may be due to loss of somatosensory integration of her limbs. There are also patterns of dyspraxia on the left side, which suggests there maybe have been injury to the right premotor cortex. There are no clinical patterns associated with microglial priming, in which systemic inflammation induces symptoms associated with localized brain injury. Examination findings identify several patterns associated with cerebellum dysfunction. These include macrographia with repeated writing of sentence, positive Rom-Rush test, Romer's test that creates further instability with head rotation to the left. Head shaking test induces symptoms of vertigo. Head shaking then induces right beat nystagmus, mild ataxia with tandem walking, dysdiadochonesia of the left limbs. These patterns are most likely associated with cerebellum autoimmunity, thyroid TPO autoimmune cross-reactivity to the cerebellum, gluten cross-reactivity, and associated traumatic brain injury to the cerebellum. Ehlers anxiety may be associated with the vestibular-induced patterns of autonomic activity during precedes patterns of falling, instability in combination with lifestyle patterns of hypoglycemia. She's severely hypoglycemic. These mechanisms appear to be inducing increased sympathetic tone, as noted with elevated resting heart rate, pulsating pupillary constriction, and dilation of the pupils light. Now, what's frustrating with Ella's case is that I think it took her 3 years to get into her office, or it was one to 3 years to get into her office, because there's not enough people evaluating patients there early. So she's 17. What if they identified this at 14 and started with the proper intervention and started doing things? In any case, I wanted to check some things with her. I want to look at laboratory recommendation. I want to look at Cyrocorate-4. I want to look at cross-reactive foods again. So like right off the bat, I'm going, hey, brain injury, neuroinflammation, there's thyroid autoimmunity, there's cerebellar autoimmunity, there's cross-reactivity between gluten and these structures, there's cross-reactivity between TPO. We've got to get the autoimmunity down. She has grain cross-reactivity in her past test and milk sensitivity. She had those dietary changes. She says in her history that somewhat helped her, but she stopped doing that. That's a big deal. Now, the other key thing with her diet is she's severely hypoglycemic. So remember, hypoglycemia is one of her pillars. And the thing with it is, every time her heart rate goes up to like 120, 110, she burns off all her sugar. Just like a hummingbird burns sugar really, really quickly, she's burning sugar like a hummingbird all day. Because her heart rate keeps going up, that heart pumping like that requires a lot of energy. So she becomes hypoglycemic every time she gets into the stress response, and then she doesn't eat, she forgets meals, and then her lifestyle adds to hypoglycemia, and then that's it. That's going to promote chronic anxiety in the feed-forward system. So exercise is not an issue with her because she's an athlete, she works out, but blood sugar stability is. And then I just go through a routine panel, lipid panel, anemia panel, C-reactive protein, ESR, estrogens, rheumatoid factor, ANA screen to see if there's any autoimmunities. We checked testosterone because she had some potential patterns of like atypical PCOS, hemoglobin, thyroid panel, CBC with differential insulin. And then I'll just show you the testing that was somewhat significant. So here's her immune reactivity to milk proteins and cross-reactive grains, Cyrocorate-4. And she's eating these all the time. So if she's had any exposure the past 4 months, they're going to show up with antibodies. So with someone who's got cross-reactivity of her brain, cerebellum, these food proteins could be a really big issue. And then when I did a dietary history with her, she literally had milk every single meal. She had cheese on something or cream on something, and then she has lots of food sensitivities. This is loss of immune tolerance, loss of oral tolerance. We're going to have to get to that at some point. Her thyroid testing, she had very high reverse T3. TPO antibodies were high, so all her inflammation was impacting her body to convert T4 to T3. That wouldn't necessarily directly explain the anxiety type patterns, but it would explain, these antibody levels are high, she's got some thyroid swelling, she's got some systemic inflammation, she's going to need her inflammation to go down so she can properly metabolize her thyroid hormones. She didn't have any other autoantibody markers. She had some issues with inhalants. Obviously we checked some things, and she's exposed to many of these inhalants in her house that we wanted to deal with. So dietary recommendations: stabilize blood glucose levels throughout the day, remove milk proteins from current diet, continue on a gluten-free diet, remove caffeine sources from the current diet, and then I just had her do some stability exercises, which is basically stare at the thumb and not move. Those aren't so critical because her brain is just so inflamed. Okay, so goals of treatment plan. There will be several phases required to manage Ella's chief complaints. The initial goal will be to reduce patterns of increased sympathetic tone and mechanisms associated with anxiety. Once these patterns have been addressed, a detailed evaluation for lifestyle, dietary, and nutritional factors to help modulate autoimmune expression will need to be implemented. Initially, there will be 3 phases of care. Phase 1, stabilize blood sugar levels to avoid hypoglycemia. Determine what degree of anxiety and increased sympathetic tone was normalized once blood sugar levels were stable. Monitor autonomic function with pulse oximeter for heart rate, and then order laboratory test. Then perform some stability exercises for balance, support modulation of immune reactivity, diet and lifestyle, and other applications later. We're going down the autoimmune deeper. Right now, my first goal was like, you got to get your blood sugar stable, and you got to stop eating milk and grains. Now, we did a follow-up like a month after. Guess what? She didn't stop eating milk. She didn't stop eating grains, somewhat. And I remember, and we had a Zoom call. I looked at the mom and said, "Mom, help. She's 17. Help her figure out what to eat. She cannot have milk. It's a cross-reactive issue. Like, her brain is getting attacked by her immune system. Like, get rid of this." And then we looked at her bars, and like the bar she was eating was cross-reactive grains. And it's like, what do we not connect with? And then finally she went off those foods, and this is her second follow-up 3 months later when she actually did follow those restrictions. So we got to remove the trigger first, and we made sure that her blood sugar levels were stable.
He's just going over your awesome forms and looking at your wonderful responses. Okay, sounds good.
Did you just get out of school?
No, I was at a workout.
Okay. How are you? Hey, I was going to ask you, you're working out, so how's your dizziness and motion?
Really good. I feel like I haven't had it.
Really?
Because I think it's just because I've been better with eating more protein
Okay.
consistently. I think that was just a major blood sugar mishap on my part.
Okay. That's wonderful news. So,
I've been doing
last.
Soul cycles, and I've been totally fine.
Right.
But I think you're
Quite impacting me.
I think you're aware of eating some protein before you go, and then
And then
you
a little
come home,
after.
or like have some protein and tons of fluid like that.
Yeah.
So, Ella,
Important will know that.
what percentage of what do you think would happen to you? Like, now you're saying you're eating every 3 hours, you're eating protein meal, you figure out how to stabilize your blood sugar. What would happen if you started to miss meals and have like a sugary snack or something? How do you think you would?
Then I get dizzy.
You would
And then I
get-
get nauseous, and then I get jittery. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And those things, create stress hormones, but they also trigger the autoimmune response. So it sounds like you got that figured out. One of the first things was in phase 1 of your care. I mean, I wrote a detailed report. I don't know if you read it or looked at it, but
Yeah.
but anyways, in that part of it, it was really, we got to get your blood sugar stable first to get you off these inflammatory proteins. And then last time you talked was actually December, and you were still like not really dairy free. You kept having dairy with every lunch meal. You had a little piece of cheese in there or something. Are you 100% dairy free now?
Yeah.
Okay. And gluten dairy free. Are you okay with this? Can you stabilize your blood sugar, be gluten dairy free, and function without it feeling neglected or anything like that?
I think so.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I feel like we've been fine with that butter and stuff.
Yeah, we found some really great products. It's actually been fun,
Good.
and I feel good about it.
I do too. I haven't really.
You mean dairy free? Dairy free?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a Kite Hill and there's a-
Macadamia nut butter.
that
is so
macadamia
good.
nut butter's awesome. Like, we found all kinds of yummy ricotta. I mean,
Yeah.
Perfect. Now, your number one complaint was stomach gut dysfunction, how it contributes to anxiety, and then anxiety and panic attacks was your second. On a scale of 1 to 10, where are you with that now?
I feel like my anxiety's been pretty fine lately.
Good. Would you say if 10 is 100%, 10 is like the worst it's ever been, and 1 and 0 is no symptoms, where are you right now?
Probably like a 2.
2. And what would you say you were before you came in, before we started changing your diet and working together?
6.
6.
7.
Okay, so that's a big reduction. Okay,
6. Yeah, 6.
perfect.
Yeah.
Now, what happens if you are around a crowded environment and see lots of motion and movement? That tends to be a stimulant. Does that bother you at all now, or?
No.
Okay. And then we used to have, last time we checked, we had you shake your head and you felt like you were moving and disoriented. Can you like shake your head, close your eyes and shake your head for maybe 10 seconds? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Close your eyes and just tell me if you feel like you're floating or dizzy or moving or anything like that.
No, I don't feel like I am.
You don't feel anything like that? Okay. And also, we talked last time you were having sensations of floating while you were sleeping.
I feel like I haven't had that since I said that.
Okay. And then what about, you feel sometimes like you feel like you're going to pass out, or you feel like you're moving when your eyes are closed, or those are
I
all,
feel like that's just kind of when I didn't eat.
Okay, that's when your blood sugar was low.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, just listen, she's had years and years of anxiety. You figure out what the mechanism is, you address it right away, you push on it, you make change. It's just, that's how it works. Now, obviously, she's got a lot of work ahead of her. We still have to really figure out her autoimmunity, her immune tolerance, and all that. But we got her out of the acute brain inflammation stage, and we got her out of her anxiety. And her anxiety was causing her constant blood sugar issues and her sympathetic tone. So this is both these cases I showed you is step by step the process that we went through this weekend. Anyways, I hope you found those cases useful to you.